Okay, it's CPI day today. And if you don't know already, now you know the year over year CPI, the number everybody is concerned with, generally speaking, came out at 8.2%, which is virtually unchanged from last month. Now, why this is important and why this is particularly alarming is that this inflation number actually goes off of measurements taken in there's a lag, let's say, of about a month or two between the prices on the street and the inflation report we see every month. So these price numbers come to us from about a month and a half ago, I would say a month ago, when gas prices were relatively much lower and still going down. And despite this, we have basically unchanged inflation across the spectrum. Let's see what we have here. Food, year over year, is 11%. Energy, year over year, 19%. Energy services, 19%. All items less food and energy, 6.6%. Services less energy, 6%. So what we're seeing is, looks like a lot of inflation in energy still and a lot of inflation in food. And what's interesting about the food number is that's based off of this year's harvest and this year's production of food. And a lot of people are saying that next year we're going to see even more food inflation, because a lot of the disruptions that occurred this year due to the war in Ukraine won't be actually felt until next year. So that's another piece of bad news. So month over month was 0.4%. So the month over month number generally is, to me, is more important. That's giving you more of the rate of change of inflation. Year over year is a little bit less descriptive of how fast prices are actually changing. And that's a relatively high number. That's also I think that's actually higher than last month. I'd have to look at the report. But so despite I wouldn't say all of the, but despite the measures taken by the Federal Reserve to cool down the demand side of the equation, inflation remains high. This just confirms to me that the inflation problems we're having have more to do with a systemic supply problem caused by government interference in the private sector than demand side issues. And as I've said before, we were able to get away with these interference policies of the government in the private sector for 10 years or so because we were able to use countries like China as a source of cheap labor and cheap goods. I would argue slave labor in the case of China. And that kept consumer prices relatively low, among other reasons. And then 2020 came in and threw that entire system off of balance. And I don't think it's going to be easily restored, because all of the actual solutions to inflation, all of the actual solutions are politically unviable. Reducing government spending, reducing government regulation and government interference in the economy is politically unviable for a variety of reasons. The voters simply will not accept it. And so the politicians won't do it. And even if the voters did accept it, the bureaucrats would then resist any changes in the status quo and make it very difficult to reform the system. So this is not temporary inflation. This is not the 1970s. In the 1970s, we were in a much different situation debt-wise. We didn't have as much debt. We had a much larger manufacturing base that could be utilized to increase supply. So many important factors in the 70s that helped us get out of the inflation do not exist now. This is not temporary inflation. This is one of the four horsemen of civilizational collapse. This is the advanced scouting party. Imagine inflation as the harbinger of doom of civilizations. The horseman of inflation has come. He's announced himself. He said he's not going anywhere. He's not going anywhere until his buddies come and reorder society. This is the beginning. What we are experiencing is a complete reordering of our civilization. That's what's going to happen. Either that or a long period of stagnation if they're managed to maintain the status quo. Either way, it's not going to be good. So I hate to be a doomer, folks, but if you're not preparing yourself, I think the time has come to prepare yourself, prepare your family. The government's Big Daddy government is not going to be able to fix this. And you can't blame Big Daddy government. Really, you have to blame the population, the electorate, which has spent the last few decades voting for its own largesse, dipping its hands into the public treasury, voting, putting people in D.C. who have over this period of time destroyed the economy. But that has to do with an ignorant electorate, a stupid electorate that doesn't understand economics. This has to do with the population that for the past, let's say, 70 years, its primary source of education has been Hollywood. So you can imagine how that might lead to a rather capricious society and an unstable one. So that's where I'm at with it. Just an update on inflation. I'm actually surprised. I thought it would be below 8%. And my feeling was that if it was over 8%, that would be a big problem. Let's see. It's 9:30. Let's see what the markets are doing really quick. Let's see, it should have just opened up, and we open up on the S&P at minus 2.14%. Dow open up, is that today? Let's make sure this is today. It looks like that is today. Dow opens below 28,000 at minus 1.76%. If 3% declines in the markets is all we get today, I think we should be thankful. Okay, that's all I have for today. Have a nice day.